It's good to be home, and today we are continuing our 7 Signs of Glory series. Today is week 3, and as Courtney mentioned, we've got a number of resources that we want to make sure that this lives outside of Sunday. One of the things that we value in this church and that we say, you'll see it on the side here, it says that we are a church of presence, encountering and experiencing the presence of God through worship like we just did, and the teaching of the Word. That as we open up the Word, we encounter the presence of God. Experiencing the presence of God is not just in moments of worship, but as we read His Word as well, and as we gather in community. And so I just want to encourage you to look into that. But before we begin, let us once again dive into our series by just bringing a couple of things to our attention. You can start taking notes at this point. A bit of a reminder of week 1. The most frequent word in the Gospel of John is the word believe. 98 times, John, the writer of the Gospel, is going to reference believe, 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 believe. But it's not just about the repetition, it's about how John uses it. John doesn't use the word believe as a noun, he always uses it as a verb. Why? Because John believes that believing is forward movement. It's an incomplete statement for us to say, I believe in Jesus, if our lives aren't leaning toward Jesus. It's incomplete to say we believe in God, but our lives aren't moving into Him. We're not pressing into Him. We're not facing toward Him. But for John, believing is forward movement. And in the Gospel of John, there are 7 miracles that he believes, and John, led by the Spirit, chooses because they embody the full essence of God. These 7 miracles embody the glory of God. And as we get an insight into that essence, we lean into Him. And as we lean into Him, we find life in Him. So, let us look at our 3rd sign of glory. It is found in John chapter 5. You with me? Awesome. We're going to read 18 verses. John chapter 5. And this is what he records for us. He says, after this was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, an Aramaic called Bethesda, which has 5 roofed colonnades, and in these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had been there a long time, he said to the man, do you want to be healed? Another translation says, do you want to be made well? The sick man answered him, sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I am going, another steps down before me. Jesus said to him, get up, take up your bed, and walk. And at once the man was healed and took up his bed and walked. Now that day was the Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been healed, it is the Sabbath, it is not lawful for you to take up your bed. But he answered them, the man who healed me, he's the one that told me to take up my bed and to walk. And they said, who is the man that said to you, take up your bed and walk? Isn't it funny the way he writes the story? And they asked him, who is the man that said, take up your bed and walk? Now the man who had been healed, who did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn from the place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, see, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you. And the man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had healed him. And this is why the Jews were persecuting Jesus, because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, my Father is working until now, and I am working. And this is why the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him, because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was calling God, he was even calling his own Father, making himself equal with God. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this time that we have, and we pray that as we gather around your word, that you would open our eyes to see Jesus in the text. Would you show us your glory, and as a result, would we lean into you and find more of your life. In Jesus' name, everybody said, Amen. Amen. Stories. Stories seem to be at the heart of who we are as humans. We love stories. Whether it's ancient stories, whether it's stories now told in film form, as Cass mentioned, the Oscars. What is a movie? A movie is a story. We just tell it now in different ways. And there are some stories that are as old as mankind. Action stories, love stories, creation stories. And with each story comes a storyteller. These are people that create and shape stories, or they have the responsibility of telling that story. And I want to go on the record today, March 8th, 2025 at 10:44 a.m. with 44 seconds, that we Latinos are the most dramatic storytellers of all time. We are the most dramatic storytellers of all time. If you don't believe me, we created a story about a crying mother and turned it into trauma and fear for generations. Her name is called La Llorona. And she's looking for her kids. So you better be careful. Don't go by the river. Except I grew up in the driest part of the continental United States, Phoenix, Arizona, so there's no rivers. So it was man-made canals. Don't go by the canal, because La Llorona is there. Only Latinos can take a love story and drag it out so much in the most outrageous, dramatic novela you've ever seen in your life. In 2004, this novela came out called Rebelde, all right? RBD, all right? It was out from 2004 to 2006, and so what, 2.5 years, okay, roughly? 3 seasons. Can anybody guess how many episodes Rebelde released? 100? 442 episodes came out. Every single one of those was at least over 45 minutes. How do you tell such a dramatic love story? Only Latinos can drag that story out. I'm telling you, it's just something else. Another word for storytelling in Latin culture is this word called chisme. If anybody says to you, let me tell you the chisme, you're going to want to stay away from them, okay? The Bible talks against that. You don't want to get near chisme. Chisme gets you in trouble. Some people live for the chisme. Chisme is tea, you know? Spill the tea. Let me tell you the chisme. No, don't do it. Don't do it. My sister is a therapist. So I was talking to her this morning, and she was like, I am sworn by the law I cannot share people that come in to see me as a patient. I cannot share anything about their story. She goes, so I make up for it in my personal life by sharing everyone's chisme. That's the way that she balances the scales. She's like, I love the chisme. She's next level. And if you still don't believe that we're the most dramatic storytellers of all time, just look at the way I just told you this story. That was very dramatic. I think I've proven my point. But listen, we might not all be dramatic storytellers, but we do love stories. As people, as humans, we love stories. As families, we love story. Has anybody noticed that after a certain point, families just tell the same stories over and over and over again? Once you meet with your siblings or you meet with your parents, it's just the same stories told, and everyone acts like they've never heard it before. Everybody laughs like they've never heard the story before, and it's funnier every time. It's almost as if we all got together and we said, hey, once everyone's over 16, we're just not going to have any new memories, okay? We're just going to tell everything that happened before 16, the trauma and everything, and we're going to laugh at the trauma now. Like, it is a very interesting thing. You can create new, beautiful memories with your family, and it doesn't matter. You're still going to tell those old stories. About a month ago, I was with my sisters. We were having dinner. It's the first time we'd all been together, I can say, in years. And we're having this beautiful dinner, and then one of my sisters suddenly just goes, hey, Sam, remember when you didn't have teeth? The story she's referencing is when I was about 6, I tripped, fell, and my 2 front teeth fell out. Yeah, I know. We laugh at the trauma now. And it took me a while to grow my two front teeth. So I didn't have two front teeth for a while. And so now, they're back, guys. They're here, all right? Look, they're here. I'm grown. I'm a pastor now. And they still bring up, hey, Sam, remember when you didn't have teeth? Families just repeat the same stories over and over again. But again, it's not just about the story. It's about the storyteller. It's about the storyteller. That's just as important. In every relationship, for example, there's the storyteller and there's the story interrupter. Y'all went way too quiet on that one. You are sitting next to the story interrupter and you are just nudging right now. The story interrupter, you got to bless them. They want to get the story right. But they like to interject into the story to tell you details that do not change the story at all. Hey, so on Tuesday, actually, babe, it was on Wednesday. Okay, on Wednesday, we were driving to dinner. Actually, babe, we were in an Uber. Okay, it doesn't matter, we got there. Doesn't matter what day it was. The whole point is we got to dinner. There's the interrupter. There's the long-winded storyteller. It's the person where you ask them, hey, how's your day? And you go, well, 6 months ago, I was praying to God. And I was like, God, you really need to help me with my days. And in the mind of a long-winded storyteller, you got to get the backstory right to really get the effect of what we're talking about. So 6 months ago, I was praying, right? And you're like, I just asked you about your day. It's a good or a bad, like, it's just, that's it. You guys are, man, this is fun. Yeah, I feel like I'm just reading your dirt. There's the headline storyteller. I don't want to generalize, but men tend to be the headline storytellers. Facts only, big headlines, no details. How was dinner? Good. What'd you guys do? Nothing. Did you guys talk about anything? Not really. So you just sat there? No, of course we talked. What'd you talk about? Not much. Like, it's just headlines. And there's nothing more, and especially those that want the chisme, they're frustrated when they meet a headline storyteller. My sister, when she's like, so Sam, what happened? I go, nothing. And she goes, oh, you're so annoying. She said, it's like you weren't raised with us. That's what she told me once. She's like, it's like you weren't even raised with us. Because I refuse to get involved in the chisme. Stay away from chisme. It does you no good. In the New Testament, we have a story, biography, 4 biographies of Jesus. And they are told throughout the centuries. And each gospel writer is its own unique storyteller. Mark, Matthew, Luke, John, each one tells the story of Jesus, but they all have their own way of telling that unique story. For example, Mark is a headlines guy. Mark is going to waste no time talking about baby Jesus. He's going to jump straight into Jesus getting baptized and starting his ministry. Headline. Do you want to talk about Jesus, baby? No. Grown man. Headlines. And he got baptized and he started his ministry. He actually even starts by saying, this is the good news of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Boom. That's how he starts. Matthew's a backstory guy. It's really funny because if you were talking to Matthew and you said, hey, Matthew, can you tell me the story of Jesus? He goes, well, if I got to tell you this story, I got to start with Abraham. You're like, Abraham? 42 generations ago, says Matthew. And I got to lay it out for you so you understand the significance of this story. Then you've got Luke. And Luke is a details guy. He wants to make sure that he gets it all correctly. The places, the names, the cities, what was happening at the time. Because Luke wants you to know this is not a fairy tale. This truly happened in a real place, in a real time, with real people. So he starts Luke chapter 2 by saying, in those days a decree came out from Caesar Augustus to all the world to be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria. And you're like, what? Too much detail, man. But for Luke, that's very important. He's got his own unique way of telling us the story of Jesus. And then there's John. And I got to be upfront with you. You guys probably know this about me already. I'm biased. I think John is a masterful storyteller. John has this way of depicting the nature and the walk and the ministry of Jesus. He's got this way of writing down his words. He wants to paint the picture. He wants to evoke emotion. He wants an element of surprise. One of the reasons I like John is that John likes drama. He's a bit of a drama queen a little bit, John. He wants to make sure that we feel the suspense. He wants us to see the conflict. And so he's going to immerse us into his story. Look, the way he starts the gospel, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And you're like, whoa. And the Word was with God, and the Word became flesh, dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. And you're like, I don't know what that fully means, but that just draws you in. He's a masterful storyteller, John. He's got this way about him. And we don't see many other places where he uses all these elements of storytelling like we do in this third sign of glory. John starts to paint that Jesus was going up to Jerusalem. He's going for a festival. We don't know which festival. For the details, people, it doesn't matter. But he gets to Jerusalem, and instead of going straight to the temple, John tells us that Jesus stumbles upon 5 roofed colonnades. 5 different groups that are kind of hovering around a body of water. And the people that make up this multitude, as he lists them, are not rich people. It's sick people, broken people, invalids, he calls them. People that are blind, paralyzed, and lame. They cannot move. They cannot do anything. And the reason why they have been hovering around this body of water is because this body of water has got a legend attached to it. The legend goes that as the water starts to bubble, the people would rush in. There is a spirit of competitiveness among the multitude. Which one of them can get to the water first? Because the rumor and the mystery was that the person that would get inside the body of water first was the one to receive a supernatural, unexplainable healing. So everybody congregates around this body of water, and Jesus shows up to that place and sees the multitude. Imagine now, if you can, the sight that Jesus sees. What is a multitude? 50? 100? 200? But you can see how with just this one word choice, John is inviting you to imagine it. A multitude. And you go, what's a multitude? And he's kind of telling you, think about it. What is a multitude to you? 1,000. 1,000 sick people congregated around a body of water, and they can't move, some can't see, some can't do anything. What is the smell of people that can't look after themselves? I can't imagine that's a pretty sight. Okay, so we have the sight, we have the smell. What does this place sound like? Are they quiet? Are they chattering? And Jesus arrives to this place, and let's say for the sake of this illustration, there are 1,000 people around this body of water, and Jesus sees one. And John tells us that when Jesus sees the man, and he knows how long he's been sitting there, 38 years. I can't imagine he's got the newest getup. It'd be hard to imagine he smells great. It'd be hard to imagine he's got his his hair's got freshly cut and his beard's lined up. I can't imagine him wearing necklaces and relaxing tanning in the Middle Eastern sun. No, 38 years. Jesus knows. He sees and he knows, and he draws near the man, and he asks him this question, do you want to be made well? The man responds with why he's not able to get inside the water. Again, John is painting this picture of Jesus leaning into the man. Does Jesus step over people as he approaches this man? Does Jesus have to move around certain people? Isn't that a weird picture? That Jesus walked past other sick people and he leans towards the one. I can't imagine Jesus, is he standing up as he tells him, hey, do you want to be made well? Or does he kneel down with him and looks him eye to eye? See, John's starting to paint this picture, isn't he? He's a masterful storyteller. Yeah. Jesus looks him in the eye. Do you want to be made well? Compassion in his eyes. I mean, that's what moved him. It says that when he saw him and learned how long he had been sitting there, he approached him. So compassion drove him. What do you think? And he says, sir, every time I try to get in the water, and he goes, don't talk about the water. Look at me. Do you want to be made well? Jesus says to him, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. I imagine Jesus was kneeling, says those words, and then stands up, waiting for the man to do exactly what he just saw Jesus do. John tells us that at the moment Jesus speaks those words, that man is healed. Now, the question becomes, will he act in alignment with what has just happened? With his healing? He does. He's healed, and the crowd says, hooray! He's healed. And this is where the story usually ends for us. Great story. Awesome. Well done, John. 10 out of 10. Way to lure us in. Jesus heals the man. That is awesome. But John does not end this story with the end. He does not end with the Looney Tunes, that's all, folks. No. John ends this story by telling us, so this man gets up, he's healed, he picks up his mat, and he starts walking for the first time in 38 years, and the crowd of the church starts to celebrate. Yay! Oh, that's amazing. This guy's been healed in the church. How awesome is that? Come on, let's celebrate. Let's give God some praise. Wow, that is awesome. And then John goes, and by the way, this happened on the Sabbath, and the whole church gasped. Oh, John is a masterful storyteller. Have you noticed that the way you and I start stories is by talking about the day first? Hey, so last Tuesday, I was doing this. Hey, last Sunday, I was with our church in Argentina. And John waits till now to tell us what day it was. It's almost like John knew that this small but important detail was going to shock the people. And he was healed. And everyone goes, yay! And it happened on the Sabbath. What? Huh? No, not on the Sabbath. No. That's against the law. And John wants to put the shock factor in front of everybody because the people that are hearing this, they don't know what to focus on. Do we focus on the fact that a man just received healing after 38 days, or we focus on the fact that the law was broken? Which one do we do? He wants to put the tension in front of us. John's going, hey, are you going to celebrate with this man being healed, or are you going to focus on the law being broken? And the people are sitting there going, oh my gosh, well, but the law was broken. And Jeremiah, God tells us in Jeremiah 17, do not carry a burden out of your houses on the Sabbath. You don't work on the Sabbath. Why is he doing this? This should not be happening. The Sabbath is holy. The Sabbath is sacred. No work can be done on the Sabbath. The people are conflicted. Do I celebrate or should I be concerned? And that is exactly why John puts this detail here. He wants us to understand the severity of what just happened. It's not just in the miracle. Remember what we said about these 7 signs of glory. The miracles are not the end goal. They're a signpost. And here, John is giving us the signposts. There are very few miracles that are more clearly a signpost than this one. And this miracle is going to spark a debate about who Jesus is. The people cheer, yes. And it happened on the Sabbath. Whoa. Ooh. And John wants us to ask two questions. Number one, what happened next? Are you for real? He did that on the what did the religious people say? Tell me the cheese, man. And the second question is, why would Jesus do this? John wants some drama. Maybe he was Latin. Juan. El Juanito, man. Juanito. Should we answer those questions? Are you with me? What happened next? Well, as you can imagine, word got out. No, you don't do that. No. And the religious authorities, they're referred to as the Jews, but he's not talking about the Jewish people. He's talking about a specific group of people, the religious authorities, the Jewish authorities. That there is a certain group of religious leaders that hear word of this, and they just go, what happened? And they go to the man, and I'm going to prove to you how John wants to put that tension between us of what do we focus on, the miracle that just happened or the law that is broken. This is why he says to them that then the Jews say to the man, he goes, it is the Sabbath. It is unlawful for you to do anything on this day. They are simply ignoring the fact that the man that's been sitting there for 38 years is walking in front of them, jumping around and dancing in front of them. He's like, I don't know what to tell you, but this guy healed me over here. Look at this. I've never been able to do this before. I expected more of a reaction from you guys for that, and you gave me nothing. You gave me nothing. That was crazy. I'm out here just doing this for you. And I'm out here making dancing videos to get you to church. And nothing. Oh, God. How fun is church? It's so good. It's so good. We love to say church should be enjoyed, not endured. There's nothing worse than enduring church. We should laugh in church, have a good time. In his presence, there is fullness of joy. Yeah. So they go to the man and they say, hey, it's not lawful for you to do that. They confront the man. And then look at the language John uses. He says, it's not lawful for you to take up your bed. And he answered them, the man who healed me is his response. He doesn't say, hey, the guy who told me to pick up my bed and walk. He says, the man who healed me. And they go, who told you to break the law? No, the man who healed me said this. Yeah, but who told you to break it? And you're going to see this time and time again. Take up your bed and walk. And they asked him, who is the man who said to you to take up your bed and walk? Now, the man who had been healed did not know it was Jesus. And here is that tension that they finally go, see, you are well, says Jesus. And the man went away and they told him it was Jesus who healed them. Now, there are some commentators that say that the man told on Jesus. Didn't this guy know that the Jewish authorities were looking for him? Weren't they concerned? Why did he go tell them? But the word told is to announce. It's almost like he experienced something so profound, he announced that the man who healed me was Jesus. Not saying, that's the guy over there, go deal with him. No, he's saying, no, that man healed me. And they cannot see the healing, they can only see the law broken. And this is going to build now into a confrontation with Jesus where they go, where is he? And they go, it's that guy right there. He healed me. And they go, that's the one who told you to break the... Let's go, boys, let's go. Hey, man, what's the deal? You telling people to break the law? Again, how crazy is it? A man's been healed after almost 40 years. They cannot see it. What's your deal, man? You just telling people to break the law around here? This is our town. And then Jesus, this is where we get, why does Jesus do this? He responds with this, and this is, my Father is working, so I'm working. In those words, we get the heart of the sign. My Father is working. How dare you? How dare you not heal this man? How dare you tell this person to do this? Why? Because my Father is working. And so I am working. For us to understand the significance of what Jesus is saying, we have to understand why the Sabbath was a big no-no. See, the Sabbath came into existence because God created all of creation in 6 days. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, finished it. He said it was good, and on the seventh day, he rested. He rested from his works. And Jesus, or God, calls that day holy. He calls it set apart, one of a kind. And then later he commands his people, hey, we're going to observe this day because I want you to understand that there is more to life than work. We are to rest, to find this cadence, this mode. We are to have a rhythm in our life. But the question that the rabbis have asked for hundreds of years is, what does it mean that God rested? Did God stop working? Because if God, you and I rest because we get tired, right? You do a workout, then you stop, and you need to rest because you need to rest the body because you've overworked it. You've been working hard at work, and then you have a day off, and on that day off, you're going to do things that are going to hopefully recharge you emotionally, mentally, and hopefully relax you and get you back to normal physically. But why does God rest? Does God get tired? I thought God was all powerful. I thought God was someone who never tires, who never wavers, who never falters. So what does it mean for God to rest? And to oversimplify, the rabbis decided, and they came to the conclusion that the way God rests, one of the ways God rests is that it means that God enjoys. So no, God does not get tired, but it meant that when God rested on the seventh day, he looked at his creation and he enjoyed it. He delighted in it. This means this is a great rhythm for us, that on days off, it's not just about I'm going to rest so I can keep working. It's looking back and going, I want to enjoy where God has placed me, even if it's not where I fully want to be. I can enjoy where I am today. That was the original purpose of this practice. And that God rested and sat in the fullness of what he created. And he goes, man, this is good. This is great. But then the question becomes, does that mean that God doesn't do anything on the Sabbath? And the rabbis concluded two different things. The first one is that God does work, and he works in two ways. The first is by sustaining life. We find this in Colossians chapter 1. It says that in him all things are created. That God, on off days, on the Sabbath, God continues to sustain life and the universe that you and I are a part of. Because everything finds its place in God and its purpose through God. And so if God were to stop, you and I would stop. If God were to stop, our whole universe would fall apart. So we need God to sustain it. It says that in the palm of his hand, he holds the world. That the earth is his footstool. That in him are all things, and all things created find their purpose in him. We need God to sustain life. So even on the Sabbath, God sustains. But on the Sabbath, God also gives life. So God doesn't stop working completely. He still sustains and he still gives life. On the Sabbath, babies are born. It's not like you just go, it's a Sabbath, hang in there. If a baby's coming, baby's coming. Nothing you can do about it. But because all things find their place in him, every new life that is born on that day is God bringing in new life. So we here are seeing that only God is allowed to work on the Sabbath. And the things he works on is sustaining life and giving new life. Now enter Jesus, and he says, they ask him, why are you doing this? And he says, because my Father is working. My Father sustains life. My Father gives life. Why would you tell this man to pick up his bed and walk? Jesus would go, I didn't. It's not about what I told him to do. It's about the wholeness he just experienced. It's about the full healing, not just physically. Jesus finds him in the temple and he says, sin no more. He's saying your external life should now reflect the wholeness that you've just encountered. He's saying to him, my Father gives life and sustains life. And because my Father's working, why did you do that? My Father's working. And if my Father's working, I'm working. Oh, this is mind-blowing. He even goes on to say, he goes, and whatever the Father says, I say. And whatever the Father does, I do. We are starting to see the essence of God start to get revealed in these words. And guys, let me tell you, it is absolutely astronomical. My Father is working. In these words, Jesus is giving us a glimpse of the glory of God, the essence of God, the luminous, weighty essence that is him. Jesus is saying, I am not like any other man. Jesus is saying, I am not any other prophet. He is saying, I am not any other preacher. He is claiming to be so much more. He's saying, if you want to know what the glory of God is like, look at me. Meaning that when Jesus saw the invalid for 38 years, it wasn't just Jesus seeing it, it meant the Father saw him. It meant that when Jesus was pressing in and leaning towards the invalid man, it meant that the Father was leaning in. It meant that when Jesus asked the man a question, do you want to be made well? It was because Jesus heard the Father say it first, and he now is saying it in person. That means that when Jesus stepped into your life, it wasn't just him coming into it. The Father saw you, and so the Son moved. The Father moved, and the Son moved, and the Spirit is there, leading, guiding. Why? Because he sustains life, and he gives life. They said he's claiming to be like God. And Jesus says, no, I am God. Hey. Jesus would say no. The Father and I are one. What he says, I say, and what he does, I do. What is God like? Is he angry? Is he vengeful? What is God like? Is he impatient? Is he disconnected from the world? Does he care about what happens in the world? Because the way you and I answer those questions determines how we live out this life. What is God like? Is he a person? Is he abstract? Does he think? Does he feel? Does God care? Because some of us make decisions because we think God does not care. Is God able? Is he all-powerful? Is he all-knowing? Because depending on how we answer those questions, some of us live hiding things as if God doesn't know. What is God like? Before Jesus' arrival, we could only guess. You can only assume. You could only perceive. But with these words and in this sign, Jesus is saying, if you want to know what God is like, look at me and find out. In these words, he's saying, if you want to see the glory of God, look at me. He's saying, if you want to see the radiant, luminous, weighty essence of what makes God be God, look at me. What an incredible, bold claim. So what do we see about the essence of God in this sign? What is he revealing to us about the nature of God? 3 things. Number one, he is revealing to us that he is a God that sees, knows, and feels. Jesus saw the man lying there and knew he had been there a long time. This means that God is not an abstract God. God is not a heartless God. He is not a distant God. He sees the man, knows his affliction, and is moved by the man's need, and he approaches him. We see this back in Exodus chapter 3 when God appears and he seeks out Moses in a burning bush. As Moses approaches the bush, he hears the Lord say to him, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he says this, I have seen the affliction of my people. I have heard their cry. I know their suffering, and I have come down to deliver them, says God. It had been 400 years of slavery, 400 years of oppression, 400 years of pain. And in these verses, we see that none of those moments went unnoticed. That not one prayer went unheard. That not one moment of pain was overlooked. He says, I am the God that sees everything that happens in the world and your world. I am the God who hears the cry of agony and despair in the world and in your world. I am the God who feels the pain of the world. I am the God who comes down to intervene on behalf of his people. And in Exodus, he intervenes by sending Moses, liberating one people group. But now in this story, God sends his one and only Son to liberate all of mankind, that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord would be saved. Glory has taken flesh and bones. It's become flesh, dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. In the arrival of Jesus, we are seeing a God that sees the pain of the world. He does not sit back and let us figure it out. He sees it, feels it, and knows it. And he sends his only Son to redeem it, save it. Why? Because he loves it. He feels. That's good news for us today. God does not look at your world and go, He sees. Not only does he see your affliction, he sees how long you've been afflicted. Now you got to remember, this man sat there for 38 years, but do not mistake his pace for his heart. Hear me again. Do not mistake his pace for his heart. Because you're slow at it, it must mean you don't care. God does things at his time and in his way. Why? I don't know. You can ask him when you're in heaven. I'm just the messenger on this one. But he does it at his time. The second, he is a God that always makes the first move. And I love this. God does not wait for you to come to him. He comes to you every time. Every time. Every time. If you respond to something, it's because God was nudging at your heart first. You came to church, it's because you had the thought, I should probably go to church today. And you just think, oh, I had the thought. No, that was the Spirit telling you, you got to come. Remember a couple weeks ago, a man came in and he spoke to me after the service, and he goes, I don't know why I'm here. I just woke up today and I felt like something said to me, run to me. It didn't start with him running. It started with God telling him, run to me. God always makes the first move. And we see it in this story. This man does not approach Jesus. Jesus approaches this man. And not only does God initiate every time, he's a pursuing God. It means that even when you're like, nah, he doesn't go, okay, all right. No, he's going to track you down. He's like the father who runs after the prodigal son. He makes the first move. He's like the father who goes and steps outside of the party to appeal to his older son. He makes the first move. He is the shepherd who leaves the 99 because one went off to try to find his own way. He always makes the first move. The only reason why you're here today, the only reason why you've got air in your lungs, is because he makes the first move. The only reason why he hasn't given up on you and why there's still hope for your future is because he always makes the first move. And even when you've turned your back, he still pursues. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. What an incredible, glorious God. as the rest of the team comes. And number 3, he is a God that never stops working. He never ceases to work. What is the Father doing in this moment? While you and I are sitting here, what is he doing? He's working. I like it. He's working in this present moment. The Father, the Son, the Spirit are working. Working to do what? To sustain life and to give new life. Meaning that what he started in you, he's sustaining new life and he's giving you new life. That what you have in Christ is already beautiful life, but he wants to sustain it, grow it, grow it, grow it, grow it, and give you more and give you more and give you more of who he is. And he says, let me show you my glory. God is actively working in our world today. He knows the state that we're in, and he continues to work. This means that as we look at the chaos in our city and in our world, and we go, God, where are you? What are you doing? He goes, hey, I'm working over here. God, but what do we do about conflicts on the other side of the world? And he goes, I'm working. You're like, it doesn't look like you're working. I'm working. All things work together for good for those who love the Lord. I'm working. God, what are you doing in my life right now? I feel like you've left. I'm working right now. But it looks like pain, and it looks like tribulation, and it looks like hardship. And he says, hey, let me remind you of the words of James. He says, to consider it pure joy when you go through trials of various kind, for the testing of your faith produces perseverance. What are you doing? I'm working over here. What do we do? How do we respond? By giving our lives to Jesus. Leslie Newbegin says that the man's obedience to the word of Jesus was his healing. He didn't just receive healing, he found his healing as he obeyed his commands. As do you and I. He's not talking about a healing physically, he found his wholeness. How does the Father work? When you and I lean into the words of Jesus, we find our wholeness.